Hey, if you're thinking of moving to Kansas City, you're going to want to watch this video because I'm going to share with you the top 7 things that people that live in Kansas City absolutely hate about living in Kansas City. These are the things that drive us crazy, and they're the things that we trauma bond over. So you're going to want to know them so that you can fit in if you choose to call yourself a Kansas Citian. Now, if you've ever met a Kansas Citian in the wild, you've probably done this and you've probably said, you must live in Kansas City, Kansas. Now that drives Kansas City, Missourians crazy. Yes, there is a Kansas City, Kansas, but by and large, most people live on the Missouri side of the city. So why is there a Kansas City, Kansas and a Kansas City, Missouri? Well, Kansas City, Kansas was actually always named Kansas City, Kansas to be deceptive. Back in like the 1850s or the 1860s, Kansas City was the furthest western city right on the far western boundary of the United States. So everything west of this boundary was Kansas territory. So it made a lot of sense. You name a city Kansas City because that's how you get to Kansas territory. So what ends up happening is Kansas territory becomes a state. Who would have thought? Some developers come along and they decide, hey, on the other side of this boundary, let's call that area Kansas City, Kansas. This was deceptively done because Kansas City, Missouri was growing so well. These guys thought, you know what, let's call it Kansas City as well, and people will come here and buy land and they'll pay more for it and they know where they're coming to. It's all part of Kansas City. So it was originally done to, deceive people into buying more expensive land, and it drove people in Kansas City, Missouri crazy, just like it drives people in Kansas City, Missouri crazy today. Now, when you come to Kansas City, Missouri today, you're going to see a road called State Line, and you can literally stand on both sides of the state line and be in Kansas and Missouri at the same time. It's a very rare feature of our city, and back then, if you would have shown up on wagon, you wouldn't have been able to tell one side from the other. All right, now if you're coming to Kansas City from a large city, you're probably concerned about public transport, and you're going to be disappointed to find out that Kansas City offers very little in way of public transport. In fact, if you flew into Kansas City, you would have a hard time finding public transportation from the airport. If you get online, you are going to see a website, and it is going to say that there's a Kansas City bus line, but it's very spotty, and it does not go to all of the neighborhoods. It's kind of a city core line, and you're still going to do a lot of walking just to get to a bus stop. Now, there's also a Kansas City streetcar, but it's a tourist line, and I really do hope it expands because the downtown is getting to where, we're down there all the time now, and it'd be really nice to be able to park in more areas and be able to hop on that line. Right now, there really is no plan at all for the streetcar line to become a commuter line. It really is just for tourists and, for us to come downtown and hop to the different touristy parts of the city. So Kansas City is incredibly proud of its brand new international airport. However, most Kansas Cityans hate where it's located at. You see, the airport's located in the northwest corner of the city, and for the last 50 years, it's pretty much been cow fields around it. And to most people that live in Kansas City, they still assume that area is pretty much cow fields. Now, if you were to fly into the city, chances are you'd be going out to Johnson County or at least southern parts of Kansas City, because that's where most of the industry is at. So if you were coming in to go to a corporate headquarters for some reason, chances are you're going to Johnson County. If you're coming in for a conference, you're either going downtown or you were going out to Johnson County, more than likely. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense why it's there, and the city never really has grown in that direction. Now, part of that is because there's always been a border war with Johnson County, specifically in Kansas City, Missouri. So Kansas City, Missouri, it's an older city, it's got some more impoverished areas, and it has taxes it has to pay for a lot more people. Well, on the Johnson County side, it's where the wealthiest people in the city live and the most corporations are at. They're able to attract more corporations because they don't have to levy as much money on their tax base, and they're able to pass that savings along to businesses, and businesses like savings. It's been really hard for Kansas City to attract the type of businesses that you normally see surrounding an airport. We expect that to change soon. There's a lot of development coming in, and of course, a brand new airport brings in a lot of new excitement. So we'll just have to see what the city does. Based on the city's past, it doesn't look so good, but again, there's a lot of reasons to believe that that area is moving towards the airport. I live 10 minutes away from the airport, due north of the city, so I love its location, and I really hope that that never changes. Now, a lot of people coming to Kansas City are so excited that Kansas City has all 4 seasons. But let me tell you about Kansas City's 4 seasons. First off, let's start off beginning of the year we've got winter. Winter in a postcard is beautiful, and yes, we do have beautiful snows, and the snow will stick to the tree branches, and God, it is beautiful, but our snow doesn't last long. It generally melts. Then it's this gray slush that just exists along all the roads and rusts out all of our cars. Again, snow here is just a very small part of winter. Winter's actually kind of ugly. Imagine just constantly gray overcast skies. Maybe once a week you got a good sunny day, but a sunny day brings wind, and let me tell you about wind. Wind is not your friend when it comes to winter. So if you've not been around a lot of cold weather, you can look at the weather and see that it's a 32-degree day. 32 degrees is technically freezing, but by the time you get through winter, if you have a 32-degree day with no wind, it feels like shorts and t-shirt weather. Here's the catch. When that wind is coming in, say you've got a 30-mile-an-hour wind that day, which is not uncommon. 20 to 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts are completely common in our area. 32 degrees with 30-mile-an-hour wind makes the wind chill, which means what it actually feels like on your skin, feel like 4 degrees. You have this barrier of heat, this blanket of heat that's coming off your body at all the time. What does wind do? It comes along and robs it right off your body. Now you're no longer insulated. That weather now feels like 4 degrees. Well, we have weather that gets down to below zero. And guess what? When it's below zero, it's not uncommon that we have wind, and I don't want to do the math for that, but it gets increasingly colder. So winter to me is not personally something I look forward to. There are people that obviously love winter. I just think that it's for the birds, and I would rather go south like they do. Let's go on into spring. Now, spring is my favorite time of year. There's only one problem with spring. Spring doesn't last long enough. You see, whenever winter and spring start, mixing, you don't really get spring until it's almost like April, late April, early May. And by the time it's June, you're into summer. So I would say spring here is really about a month to month and a half. Now, during that time, we get a lot of rain, which I don't mind the rain. We get a lot of thunderstorms. I don't mind that, but you do get a lot of tornado warnings. Now, a tornado warning doesn't mean there's an actual tornado. Makes sense that they would call it that, I know, but a tornado warning means that there is some movement in the sky that could create a tornado. So every spring you're going to have tornado watch and tornado warnings, and very rarely is there actually a tornado. And we've talked about in our other videos that most of the tornado activity in the country now is actually along the south and the southeast. We do get an occasional tornado here. So we do get tornadoes, we just don't get the amount that we used to. So we're still known for them, mostly because of like the Wizard of Oz, and people think we're in Kansas. We do get them, it's just not as much as we used to, so it's not something we worry about on a regular basis. That is maybe the worst part of spring. Still my favorite season. But again, spring doesn't last long, so we're gonna move right into summer. Now, come summer, it gets hot. It gets blistering hot. We get into 95 to 103. We had 106, I think, this summer we hit. And you wouldn't think we get those temperatures, but we do. It gets very hot, but it's a lot different than temperatures in, say, Arizona, where they might hit 105, because in Arizona, you've got what's called dry heat. We've got what I call moist heat. And I know everybody loves that word, but it is moist. It is just muggy, miserable, swampy heat. And it kind of does the same thing that wind chill does to cold. Humidity makes the heat even hotter. It actually holds it in. It doesn't allow you to cool yourself off. Everything is 100% humidity, which means your body doesn't actually release any moisture and cool yourself off. So it feels hotter than it actually is. It's miserable. Now, here's the other catch. By the time you get used to summer, summer's also over, and now we're into fall. Now, fall is my least favorite season of them all. I still like summer because I don't like being cold. I wish spring lasted a lot longer, but fall, that one really kicks my butt. You see, and we're actually going to mix the next one in with this one because fall does this to me. These are all my favorite drugs because of fall. This one goes up my nose. This one is Benadryl. That one's really helpful if you're having a really bad day. This one goes up the nose. This one goes up the nose. This one's my favorite one that goes up the nose. When you take this one in, it burns really good, clears the head out. You're going to want to know if you have allergies at all about, the blue bottle. This one is basically generic Claritin. The green bottle if the Claritin doesn't work. And then my all-time favorite, this is my Sudafed. And these are what gets me through the fall. I remember as a kid, not having these, and I just kind of walked around with my eyes closed the whole time, and I've really felt like I time traveled. I don't have a whole lot of fall memories because all those beautiful leaves that everybody loves, they're dying. And as they're dying, they're breaking down, they're going into the air, and they bother people with seasonal allergies. Again, you can have seasonal allergies in the summer as well. There's ragweeds, there's grass that's getting cut, there's lots of stuff like that. But I think fall, at least for me, is the worst time of the year for seasonal allergies. That goes on. Again, the leaves are beautiful, but they don't even last that long because winter comes in pretty early, fall's short just like spring. So winter comes in early, and you get one good frost and all the leaves are falling off the trees pretty quick. Now you've got a mess to clean up while it's cold outside. That's all the leaves on the ground. And then it's winter and we're back to winter again. Now winter, it's cold and ugly and we could start the whole story again, but it comes on a lot earlier than I would like it to. It stays a lot later than I would want it to. And there's another piece to winter that we didn't talk about, and it's called seasonal affective disorder. Seasonal affective disorder is basically you get sad because the sun doesn't come out that much. Basically, again, our winter kind of looks like every video you've ever seen of Russia. It's just a sun that's barely coming through an entirely gray sky, and that makes people sad. It makes me sad, and again, I wish it would become spring and spring would last longer and then we would get to summer. So that's the 4 seasons, and I'm jealous of some of you who get to have one season all year and it's just the good season. Now, one thing you are definitely going to love about living in Kansas City, if you're an entomologist, is that we have a crap load of bugs. There are bugs everywhere. As soon as it's warm enough for them to come out, you're going to find bugs underneath everything and everywhere. We have flying bugs, we have crawling bugs, we have slithery looking bugs, we have loud bugs, we have every type of bug you can imagine. Wasps, hornets, bees, which I like the bees. But then we have my least favorites, which are mosquitoes and chiggers. I like going out to the woods. I like doing things outdoors. I'm allergic to everything in the fall, and I am allergic to so many things also in the summer, which brings me to a bonus thing to hate about Kansas City. I like being outside. If I get to go to the mountains and we're up above that certain line, there's no such thing up there as poison ivy. But we have poison ivy, poison sumac, and poison oak. I would consider myself an outdoorsy type of guy. I cannot always spot poison ivy, poison sumac, or poison oak because each one of those, they look like different things. They're not always consistent with how they look. They're a crafty plant, and they find different ways to survive by blending in with other things, I guess, because no matter what I do, I always seem to get chiggers, mosquito bites, and then poison ivy, poison sumac, or poison oak if I go outside the yard too far into the woods. Now, as you can probably tell, the 4 seasons that we're so lucky to have here in Kansas City have a lot of impact on the way that we live life. And this last one is no exception. I don't think there's anybody that I've ever met that likes this. Pretty sure everybody I've ever met in Kansas City absolutely hates this one. Having 4 seasons in Kansas City creates a lot of expansion and contraction of materials. You drive a car, you drive your car on materials that make up roads. That contraction and expansion mixed with salt that expands and contracts and then chemically breaks down the surfaces of the road, that creates potholes. And potholes are very common here. You're going to see a lot of road problems in Kansas City, and they're always doing construction on roads because the roads are experiencing such variances in temperature, and again, salt is not the road's best friend. Potholes are a pain in the butt in Kansas City, and if you like potholes, Kansas City is probably not the best place for you. Now, if you're thinking about making a move to Kansas City and you'd like to find a real estate agent that would help you make that transition as easy as possible, that's what we do. So reach out to us at 816-439-8705. While we won't be able to keep you away from bugs or mosquitoes, we will be able to point you to the perfect neighborhood for you. We've been doing this for a long time. We've helped hundreds of people just like you find their perfect spot in Kansas City, and we would love to help you too. So again, don't hesitate to reach out. Give us a call, text, email, 816-439-8705, and we'll talk to you soon.